So this is the helmet from the Mandalorain, the Disney Plus show. I started printing it over the course of a couple days in an attempt for, well, two things. One, to get a really early head start on Halloween on the assumption that we are going to be safely allowed to go outside for Halloween. And on the other, so that I can learn to do some prop making. I've had a 3D printer for a couple years and I've always wanted to make something like this, but never really had the opportunity to, or never really had the guts to do it because it was just a big task. So I'm hoping that this is part one of kind of a small series of building the whole suit of chest plates, shoulder pieces, and so on. Starting with this, and this will give me a good, really ambitious start to kind of prop making with finishing and painting and getting, metallic coatings and stuff right. Stuff I want to learn and try. So this isn't really much of a how-to video, more of a I'm just documenting what I'm learning as I'm going. But feel free to follow along if you want, and I'm going to immediately make mistakes, as you'll see, and we can go from there. But real quick, before I show you kind of everything else I did, I just want to say thank you. It seems like such a small number, but I hit about, I think, 200 subscribers or so between my last video whenever this one goes up, and I mean, it's just very sweet, and I appreciate it a lot. So thank you, all of you who are watching, and stick around, because I don't know, I'm hoping this turns out really well. So the first step in making this is to obviously 3D print it. So what you see right here is the back grille. It's this little thing that looks like vents on the back of the helmet. Just going through this quick time lapse. You'll see coming up in a second that when I start putting it together, I had a bunch of small pieces. I print on a Prusa Mini, and in an effort to save on filament, I printed in a bunch of small parts. This did eventually lead to some issues that you'll see here in a second, where I had some fitting issues and I wound up having to start over. So I eventually came to the conclusion that doing lots of big prints that took longer in less parts was better for the overall quality and better for the print and my sanity at the end of the day. Okay, so I think, because I'm super frustrated at this point, I think what I'm going to need to do is just start over, taking a different approach with slicing the model. So you can kind of see, this is the model I've been working with, and I sliced it myself into, roughly, 25-ish different parts, which is what you see here. And some of them had to be sliced a little farther to fit more comfortably in my print bed and not waste material. So that's why you see like 8A and 8B as opposed to just 11. So somewhere along the line, and I don't really know how, but I sliced up the model, and I mean, you can kind of see like things are not lining up as they should. Stuff back here, I mean, it lined up really well. But then you wind up with stuff like this. Like, I don't know what happened to 16, but it's completely out of place. And I cannot bend the helmet to fit. You probably saw in some of the time lapse, I could not bend the model to make any of this fit without a lot of force. I didn't want to break this. So what I think I'm going to do is go back, and instead of doing so many small pieces, I'm going to cut it up into as many big chunks as I can, not worry about the cost of the filament because I have hopefully enough, and then just print bigger chunks and put it together, and there's less error. There's a smaller chance of error. I'm going to bite the bullet on this because this is not going to turn out the way that I want it. And I'm going to re-slice and reprint it. So I was hoping to have a video about this out by the end of the year. May not happen, but we will try. Yeah, we'll be back with hopefully a better sliced model of this to print. And so I went back to reprinting everything from scratch. What I did this time in Mesh Mixer was, instead of cutting it into a bunch of small pieces to save on filament and ideally time, I instead split it into about 8 different parts. 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top, and then the 2 cheek parts had to be sliced in half in my slicing program in order to make them fit on my print bed. But after doing that, everything fit. I printed it over the course of a couple days. All of these took about anywhere from 7 to 9 hours each, and I had to reprint the back grille since I had already glued on my original one. But after doing that, everything just fit together so much better. And you can see here, I'm gluing everything back together. I had the bottom part put together, and I'm gluing the crown up so that I can then glue that together and put it on top. And at the end of the day, this just turned out so much better. And I kind of wish I did this from the start, because this would have saved on filament, but it did turn out just so much better doing it this way, because there was less pieces, which means there were less things that could go wrong, and it just gave me a much better overall product at the end of the day. Take 3, because I'm not in the shop now. So this is the reprint of the helmet. I went back into Mesh Mixer, and instead of slicing it into 26 small pieces to do lots of really quick prints, I instead did what was probably more logical and did about 8 pieces, much longer print times, about 8 to 9 hours each, doing 4 parts for the crown and 4 on the bottom, and the result is just so much better. There are less pieces means there's less chance of things going wrong. There is less to glue, and it turned out just so much better. There's still some issues with it, part of it being this part of the crown doesn't line up, but this could be filled in with Bondo. I'd made the decision to line it up with the top so that this doesn't need to be created with body filler, and I just fill it in down here. But that's kind of like the biggest issue, is just some things aren't fully lined up and they just need to be sanded and filled to get a nice smooth finish. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, just so much better than a bunch of little pieces going together. Less stuff went wrong. And I actually think it fits a little better too. It fits really well. It is a little big, because I didn't scale it at all, so it just needs some like padding in the top just to keep it raised up on my head a little bit, and then some on the inside so it doesn't go wobbling around when you turn your head. But with that, I mean, it turned out so much better than the original one, and I can't get over, honestly, how much. One small thing I did add, there's a bracket in the back or in the front here connecting these 2 cheekbones. And what that does is it gives them some support so that you can kind of grab it from the front without worrying about squeezing the cheeks and cracking them in half. So that's something I just threw together really quickly to print, just to give it some reinforcement. If anybody is doing this too and wants that, let me know. I'll throw it up on Thingiverse or something. I'd always be okay just stopping here, but I do want to do the whole costume. So my next step is to Bondo, filler, prime, sand, rinse, repeat, a long time until this gets a nice smooth finish, and until it's ready for painting in my for my eye. So before I do that, I do need to make a sanding box, kind of so I can sand indoors with this thing. I live in an apartment. I don't have access to a workshop or anything, unfortunately, especially not in these times. So I need to be able to sand indoors so dust doesn't fly everywhere. So I'm going to try and get some footage of that. And that'll be probably a really quick video, just cutting some holes in some boxes and such. So I really like how this turned out. I think it's a really cool first step into doing all of this. This is my first attempt at any kind of real prop making, and I'm excited to keep going with it. So keep an eye out for what would be, I guess, part 1.5 of that sanding box assembly thing. And then once we're done with that, we'll move on to Bondo filling and sanding and such. I will also include the link to this model on Thingiverse. It's not mine. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, liked it. If you don't like it, don't like it. Let me know why so I can fix it. And keep an eye out for the next stuff. And I hope you enjoyed it and learned something of some kind. So thank you, and come by next time. I need that.